The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
It's Thursday night under the lights at the World Center of Speed. You're tuned in to LSRTV's coverage of the SESRA Series season opener. It's the Authentic Details 225 at Daytona. Good evening, race fans, and thank you for making us a part of your day wherever you may be tuning in from. Joined alongside by my broadcast partners Andrew Cardinale and Rachel Whiteford, with Brett Wheeler running the controls to bring you all the sights and sounds from the track. My name's David Schildhouse, and even before we jump into tonight's action, I want to take a moment before these guys get off to qualifying to bring in the Director of Memberships and Marketing. That's Brian McCrae, to have him talk a little bit about this series. And Brian, David Schildhouse up in the LSR-TV booth. You got a copy?
10-4, how you doing tonight?
We're doing great. We're ready to see you guys hit the track and put on a show here for this 225-miler, the season opener for the SESRA Series. And Brian, just tell me a little bit more about you guys, the Southeast Sim Racing Association. What are you guys all about, and what are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for being here, first of all, and we are super excited about this race. I know our drivers are excited. We've been incubating this league for about 6 months now. It was actually started by Jason Anderson. He's our founder and president. Matt Ridgway is our director of competition. I'm the director of memberships and marketing. And Jason and Matt both work for a top-tier NASCAR team. They both got race cars in their driveways and also families with kids. And at some point, we all realized that our racing careers are probably going to be limited to, sit behind the wheel here at iRacing. And iRacing provides such a phenomenal experience that we're all pretty much great with that. We started the league eventually just essentially as a grassroots effort. And then when I joined, I saw an immediate opportunity to expand it into broadcasting. It was something that Jason really wanted to do, was to bring together a community of like-minded drivers, like-minded racers with good talent, with good people as well, and bring with them their community of fans and their friends and their families, and try to bring some people into this new nascent sport, this new form of entertainment. It's something that we all believe in, and we all spend tons of time behind this wheel. So we're really, really excited about it, and we think we've built something really special so far.
It sounds wonderful as a sim racer myself of a long period of time and running a lot of competitive leagues. I like what you guys stand for. Everything you said, it sounds like race car drivers and race car fans getting together to enjoy the sport and the hobby of sim racing, and some guys do it in real life. And as you said, some of us, this is as close as it gets, and to bring it all together with a good community behind it, that's really something great to shoot for. And I imagine over the next 20 weeks as we see you guys compete, we're going to see a lot of great racing action. All kicks off here at Daytona. So as far as the SESRA series goes, pretty slim looking rule book, which I appreciate as someone trying to learn all the rules. But for the fans watching at home, what are some of the special or unique rules that maybe we'll see on display here tonight and over the next 20 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good catch, and that's by design. We wanted to keep things not over-regulated for that, so we feel like that can hamper a league, especially in the long run. So our director of competition has done a great job of just letting us run. And we've done a lot of practice races together. This core group of 30 guys has been racing together for about 6 months, and so we've learned the ins and outs of tracks, and so we've kind of let the racing speak for itself. A couple of unique things: we do like to manage our tires. So like for this race in Daytona, we're limited to two sets of tires. Not as much of an issue here, but when you go to short tracks, we might throw a limit like that into the mix, and you really have to manage your pit stops. Being on pit road, getting on and off pit road is just good staying fast on the track. So some of that, but mostly it's just good, hard, clean racing. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. I've always been a very big fan of the tire management rule. It's tough to police, and it's sort of a gentleman's agreement, and guys got to be honorable to make it work, but it really puts a great twist on sim racing. So I love that. When I saw that, I thought that was great, and I appreciate you highlighting it. So we'll keep an eye on it as best we can up in the broadcast booth. I know you got qualifying coming up here shortly. Good looking field of race car drivers, and all the excitement of a new season. So Brian, I appreciate you coming up, sparing a few moments, and anything else that you want to say before you jump into the action here tonight, I'll let you have the microphone to do so.
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, thank you guys at LSRTV. You guys have been a great partner thus far. We're getting this league set up. We are so excited about the partnership in this next 20 weeks and helping grow the league. And, man, we'd love to see some fans and some people interact. So come watch us on YouTube and interact with us and join in the fun. It's going to be a great race and a great season, great series. So thank you guys.
All right, there you have it. Brian McCrae, the Director of Memberships and Marketing here at SESRA. And Andrew, I'll bring you in here if you're ready to rock and roll. Now we'll get down to the analysis. We're here at Daytona, 225 miler, 90 laps. The season opener, a lot of new exciting things, and guys looking to start their seasons off on the right foot. What's really the strategy here with the 20-race season ahead of you? What do you got to really get done here tonight?
Well, really, David, these guys just got to get out here and turn some laps and start getting used to drivers. Obviously, it's Daytona. Things are somewhat thrown out of the bag, but you can still pick up on some drivers' tendencies. So if you're new to, I guess, to the series, you can try and get used to some of these drivers in this series and try to get used to who's aggressive, who sits in the back, and so on and so forth. So it's really important to kind of just get into, I guess, an introductory sort of mindset here tonight. Just understand that you're here for 90 laps. You got to complete those 90 laps if you want to win, and just get yourself to the end, get used to people, and hey, if you got a shot at the end to win it, you got a shot at the end to win it.
Absolutely, and Rachel will say good morning to you. Good to have you on board for the call here as well. It's Daytona. You're an oval racer. You know asphalt pretty well. If you're out here in this field of drivers, are you looking to maybe hang in the back for a while and then charge up through in the closing laps, or do you want to start up front and stay up front?
It's one of those difficult things to really pick what you want to do in these sort of races. Super speedways make for challenging racing. You're right, it's either you stay up front or you stay in the back. You don't want to be in the middle. The middle's danger zone. That's not you definitely don't want to be. So you got to measure where you are, qualify well, you try and stay up front. If you're in the mid pack, I drop to the back pretty early on, ride it out for the first half, and then pick somewhere to go.
All right, I think that's really the thing we'll be keeping an eye on here over the next 90 laps are the varying strategies. Some guys want to play it safe. They say if you're in the back, it's easier to miss the wrecks, but I don't know. If you're out front and the wrecks are going to be behind you, you don't have to worry about missing anything. So some guys like to do that, and some of them want to try and lead every lap and keep all the bad stuff behind them. So we'll see what these guys want to do, but they're lined up on the on pit road here. Qualifying has completed, so we'll take a moment to kick off the starting lineup here for race number 1. The man on the pole in race number 1 is going to be Mark Arthur, riding the number 12 car. To his outside will be the number 19 of Corey Stevens. Inside row number 2, car number 9 is going to be Jeff Ward. And his outside will be the number 89 of Steve Ritter. Inside row number 3 is going to be Sean Wilder in that number 91. And his outside will be the number 5 of Derek Paulson.
And coming to you from row number 4 will be Spencer Bree in the 00 machine. To his outside, Travis Brown in the 58. He starts 8th. Day Graves Jr. rolls off in the 9th position tonight. That's the inside of row number 5. To the outside of him will be Mike Montesi in the number 7. That's Taylor Butcher Benjamin in the number 8 in the 11th position. That's a mouthful. Then it's Kyle Vincent Gilbert rolling off from 12th.
13th place tonight, John Johnson, which is a great name there. I'm pretty much sure he's called John. Matt Ridgway coming out in 14th place with Jason Anderson in 15th. Jensen Taylor in 16th place. Tyler Pisano? Yeah, we'll try and go for that one. Brian McRae, we know that one already. And Morgan Baird in 20th. Kevin Dye in last place.
Yeah, that's going to be a tricky one, the driver, the number 1. Tyler Pinsino. I'm going to go with Pinsino. It kind of looks like Renault.
Sounds about right.
I don't know. We'll go with that, and he can correct us after the fact. Hey, if you finish in the top 3, you get to talk to the broadcast team. So maybe if you finish in the top 3, we can ask him there. And cars roll off of pit road, getting ready for their 1 warm-up lap here at Daytona, 2.5 miler. This is the big boy. All the stock car seasons start here at Daytona in real life, so why not do it here in the sim world? And Andrew, you're out there getting ready. You got 90 laps ahead of you. You got to keep your emotions in check, keep calm. And maybe these guys have been striking some deals beforehand to find their drafting partner and figure out what strategy they really want to employ.
Yeah, you never really just want to wing it when you go straight into a series, but sometimes you have to. And if you're one of those guys who hasn't been lucky enough to set aside a drafting partner going into tonight's race, you really just kind of, again, want to get used to things. Settle in here. Don't try too hard at the start, but also don't try so little that you suddenly end up at the very back of the pack, because it's really hard to retain that draft once you're already back there. So you really have to be careful with how hard you push, but also how hard you lay back.
Yeah, losing the draft, definitely one of the worst fears of any sim racer or real-life racer when it comes to the plate track racing. These guys are going to be in that big pack, and you fall off the tail end of that, it could be an early end to your night because you're not going to make that up. But as the field works through 3 and 4 right now, it's going to be in the hands of Mark Arthur. Keep an eye on that number 12. He'll be the man in control. Flagman's going to start this one. All the other restarts will be on the leader, but the pace car makes that hard left-hand turn to pit road. Waiting for the green flag to come out. There it is. This season is underway at Daytona. Mark Arthur leads them across the start-finish line as they get up to speed.
And a very calm start here so far, and I'm sure it'll stay that way through turns 1 and 2, but then these guys will be let loose down the back straightaway. Out of turn 2, you start to get momentum built up here, Rachel, and that's when we'll start to see some moves be made. But for now, these guys just trying to get down the bottom side more than likely, but that top side will come in.
Certainly will, of course, and two drivers I want to bring up very briefly here in this one is Spencer Preet and the driver as well of Travis Brown, who appears to have not started this one, but unfortunately had some technical problems for him. Those two drivers, well, most of the point Spencer Preet, they're known quantities. They are very aggressive drivers, so keep an eye on them to be moving towards the front. Preet currently sitting back in 7th place. He's actually, no, Preet's up in the 3rd spot right now, right behind your leader, shoving him for all he's worth as they come to the triangle to end lap number 1, and it was nearly 3 wide there across the line.
Yeah, the leader there decided to jump to the back, so the strategy on display right away for him. He didn't want to be anywhere near the front right there, I guess. So Mark Arthur straight to the back now, falls to the last car on the lead lap there. Jeff Ward out front in the number 9. And the line forming up definitely appears to be favoring the bottom right now, Andrew. So more momentum down on the low side. Those guys are going to jump down there. And maybe it's just a little bit of patience. These guys know they got a long way to go. Got a couple pit stops they probably have to make, so no need to run over each other. Just run in line and see what all sort of shakes out.
Definitely, David, and again, we just went green on this season, so these guys just want to settle in right now. They want to slot into the bottom side if they can. They don't want to lose time on the top when that loses its energy, but right now I think they're just going to ride around. You see a bit of a top line starting to form. I think that's the 15 or 25 car further back. 35, sorry, it's Brian McRae, who we just spoke to. He's actually starting to get a bit of a, I guess, rear of the field top line resurgence almost, and it's only lap 3. These guys are already trying to make energy go forward and try to make something happen on the top line, but it's just a little bit too early, I think. I don't think these guys are going to really want to go up there too early.
You don't want to be the first guy to make the move unless you're really sure you got somebody to go with you. And, you know, it's really a patience thing. And Rachel, you know, in your experience out here on the oval side and asphalt, especially plate racing, it takes a lot of patience just to sit and run behind a guy. It's sort of against most race car drivers' nature to just sit behind a guy. But at this style of racing, you really got to be patient if you want to keep your position and not force your hand and possibly lose your track position because you're sick of looking at that guy's rear bumper.
You got to remember as well, the Xfinity cars, they handle very differently in the draft of the Cup cars. They are, again, like the trucks, more like the Cup cars, if anything. The Xfinity cars are more of a momentum vehicle. It's about keeping that speed. You can't quite gain as much as you might in the Cup car as quickly. You lose it a lot faster. So it's about keeping momentum going. It's about getting a good pack formed up and getting that momentum going in your lane. Then you can take advantage of that, and that will help you throughout this race. But you've got to get a good group of guys together, hook up, and get trucking.
I want to highlight the pole sitter, Mark Arthur, who pulled over on the first lap down the backstretch. He has absolutely lost the draft. We talked about it, Andrew, at the top of the show here. You don't want to lose the draft. He's only doing 180 miles an hour around this racetrack. Meanwhile, the leaders are doing well over 190, and he's just losing time. So I don't know if he had an issue or he just mistimed how he was getting up to speed. That's a bad start to the season for him, starting on the pole and losing the draft within a lap as the field works past a slower car there to lap. I believe that's the number 58. It is of Travis Brown. So already got a lapped car and some guys losing the draft.
Yeah, you know, of course, you don't want to lose the draft early, and I think he's banking on a caution, and we will likely see a caution. I don't think anyone will doubt that, but there's always a chance of not getting a caution until it's too late. Suddenly you're a lap down, and there's other drivers that are a lap down. You're behind them. You can't get that wave around or can't get that lucky dog. So suddenly you can be in a really bad spot, even though you still get that caution later on in this race. So it's a really risky play. If it works out for him, great. If not, well, again, it's a really risky play.
Well, sometimes you got to make those risky plays, but I don't know about lap 1 or 2 of a 90-lap race at the start of a season. So maybe there was more to the story, and again, if we get a chance to talk to him later on, we can ask him about that. All we can do is assume at this point, but back up front, good side-by-side battle. These two lanes sort of evening out. It seems to be 6 cars apiece between the top side and the low side, so even energy, even momentum all the way around. They're running side-by-side. Looks like a high-speed pace lap.
Certainly does. Looking fantastic out there on the racetrack. Everyone keeping themselves well behaved. Not any incidents yet so far, so fingers crossed we won't bring the commentator's curse here, but field is nicely... Oh, and yeah.
Yellow.
I shouldn't have
Just had
opened
to
my mouth,
say it.
should I? I should have opened my mouth.
Off at turn 2, you saw it there live as Brett Wheeler did a great job to bring you the angles of that real time. The leader himself, the number 9, I don't know if he got a little bit of a shove, comes up the
He
racetrack.
wrapped himself around.
Yeah,
He came up.
I think he might have had a little bit of help from behind.
He definitely got a shot from Spencer Preet there, guys, and it just shoved that 9 up the track. Of course, when you bump on, with one of these cars at this point, taking all the downforce off the rear end, if you bump in the corner, it just shoots that car up the track or it turns it around. So in this case, Spencer Preet just barely gets to the back of the 9. It shoots up the track just ever so slightly into the 19, and you're racing in a game of inches here at Daytona. It just eventually, you don't have enough room, and the 9 just washes up into the 19, and that even collects the 5 of Derek Paulson.
You got to remember though, Andrew, that coming off turn 3, if you come out of turn 2, it keeps you straight, right? It's a good flat corner. Coming off 3 though, that bottom lane, it kicks you up a bit. So it wanted to help him move anyway, but yeah, the 00, Spencer Preet, it really helped. He helped him up the track, but it's the best place to help somebody up the track. Turn 3 really wants you to force you wide.
That's a tough deal, and that's really frustrating when you're the guy out front, the number 9 of Jeff Ward, looking in good shape and just saying, hey, guys, we're doing well. Stay patient, keep it clean. But Spencer Preet, you said it, Rachel, he's an aggressive driver. That's a known quantity, and that aggression showed through there. Also want to say the number 24 of John Johnson also involved in that. Sort of the cars scattered across the backstretch sort of clogged the race groove. 24 caught a piece of that as well, but looks to be pretty terminal damage for the number 19 of Corey Stevens and the number 9 of Jeff Ward here in our first yellow flag of the evening.
And Spencer, of course, any sort of damage is basically terminal. I do apologize, Andrew.
Oh, you're fine, Rachel. Well, Spencer Preet comes into the pits. I did see second place Steve Ritter did not come down the pit lane. A lot of drivers deciding not to come in and get their tires. And even if you do come in right now, you don't have to get your tires, obviously. You can come in for fuel only. I think that'll be a popular move here on this first caution of the night.
I like the decision at least to come down and get gas. Again, in this series, one of the rules we talked about with Brian McRae, they are limited. It's on a tire allotment. So you don't want to necessarily put tires on if you don't have to. Save them for later in the race. Super Speedway, it's not as important, but it'll be great to see that rule affect the overall strategy at other racetracks as the season goes on. But yeah, that'll put Steve Ritter out front. That number 89 decided not to pit. Another handful of cars along with Jay Graves, Jason Anderson, Mike Mondesi, Travis Brown, the lap down car, stayed out as well. I don't think he's going to get that wave around because there are leaders in front of him, so that's a tough deal there. But that caution does help our pole sitter, Mark Arthur, catch up to the field. We talked about him losing the draft. There's that caution he needed. So I'll be keeping an eye on him to see if he stays with the draft this time.
Yeah, that'll be important for him to hopefully get that one this time by. But, we did mention, though, that basically any damage on these cars is terminal. You are out of the draft as soon as you have any sort of bodyweight damage because it just can't be fully repaired, which is unfortunate. But this does let everyone record stack and get back in order for this thing, so we can get something pumped off again on lap 9 here. So let's call it a 10th of the way done.
Yeah, that's you can't get it fixed all the way as you said, Rachel, but there's no 5-minute clock either, like they have in NASCAR. So even if you have a little bit of a damaged car or a kind of tore up car, you can still go out there and try and turn competitive lap times or hit a minimum speed at least, because it's a season. It's a championship. There's points on the line, Andrew. And as we saw in the Cup side of things last Sunday at the Roval, every point really does matter. So a point gained here tonight could pay huge dividends, towards the end of the season. So you got to get out there and get every point that you can.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, you don't just want to quit. Even if you get a little bit of damage and suddenly you're off pace, you can keep going, obviously. And if there's another big wreck, suddenly that's more points there, more to your point there. So, yeah, you're totally right. You got to keep going. And honestly, even if you just keep coming in, get maybe 30 seconds caution or something, or with the big pace laps here, probably a minute of caution. If you have big damage like possibly the number 24 of John Johnson does, at least his nose is fixed. But if you have big damage like that early, just come in, keep chipping away at it, and eventually your car will at least be decent. Maybe not race winning, maybe not even be able to hold on to the draft at the end, but at least better.
Well, better is always something to strive for, and you know, the guys with better fuel in their fuel tank right now, the back half of the field, that'll put them in a different pit window than these guys that stayed out, guys like Steve Ritter and Jay Graves and Jason Anderson. So these guys have their, I think they're pretty well committed now, Rachel, to this point of their strategy. The 5 of them, I expect, to stick together, and they'll definitely pit together if this thing continues on under green by the time they have to pit, because the other guys behind them aren't going to come in.
Oh, certainly, and that's something they'll have to think about in their strategy, as everyone will have to come in, but it's more about when and why, and as long as they've got a good group with them, it's not going to be too critical whether they're coming in under this particular stop or under green. In fact, green can be more effective sometimes.
When executed correctly, yeah, and I'll ask you this, Rachel, for your expertise on it. How many cars does it really take to get the maximum draft effect? Is it 3 cars? Is it 4 cars? Or do you really need 5?
3 will keep you, well, 2 will keep you ahead of the leaders. 3 is ideal to gain ground, but 5 is optimum in terms of actually being as fast as, if not faster than the leaders. In fact, if those 5 are hooked up properly, yeah, you can catch back up again.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. Those guys, when they have to come in and pit, I believe, if my math's correct, it is 5 of them that stayed out. So to your point there, Rachel, the optimum number right there that is going to be needed to you know, run good lap times just as 5 with a bigger pack running in the draft when that all cycles out. That'll be fun to watch. I like that. And hopefully it stays green so that we can see those different strategies play out. But, you know, the lights are out on top of the pace car here, so we're half a lap, I should say, away from going green. And Andrew now, new faces up front. These guys maybe, you know, go a little bit cooler after what they just witnessed to bring out the first yellow.
Yeah, definitely. I think these guys will back it down to a degree, but really that wasn't anything too aggressive that we saw out of the 00 to cause that in the first place. It was just a basically small bump out of the corner. So I don't think much will change. It was a pretty good run there that we had going. Just unfortunately, one small bump from the 00 of Preet gets the 9 up the track, and well, it's on from there.
Yeah, I would imagine that was not a very happy driver of the number 9, Jeff Ward, who saw his lead just go out the window with that bump. So it may have been no big deal to Spencer Preet, but that meant everything to Jeff Ward. And, you know, it's a long season, 19 races to go after this. So, you know, not the start that he was looking for, but I know Jeff Ward will get back out front next week. But green flag's back out. We're underway here on lap number 12, and it's Steve Ritter in the number 89 leading him around. You see these guys shuffle down to the bottom now as Jay Graves jumps down to the low side. Definitely the low lane's the place you want to be on the restarts, and you can tell all these guys jumping down there. There are now only 2 cars on the outside lane.
Yeah, absolutely. And the low side typically always is the good one, unless you're at Daytona 07, at which point, weirdly enough, the middle lane is actually faster. But here, nice smooth track. These guys have got a really nice, easy day of it. So the low side, it's the shortest way around, it's the fastest, but you get a good group of cars early up, as we've got the 7, the 227, and the 00 going for a run on the outside. You can make a good run with 3. We talked about in terms of coming off a green flag pit stop, but 3 cars hooked up well on the high side with a good side draft. They can make good progress like they're doing right here. Will the 7 just drop down, or will he bring him with him? Nope, 7's going to be selfish. No, he's underside. No, yeah, he's selfish.
It's sort of the Dale Jr. Pied Piper strategy, which I've yet to see anyone really successfully employ in sim racing. But, you know, with that draft package, you could really just control both lanes. But it doesn't really quite work that way here, as now Kyle Vincent Gilbert and that number 227 on the outside getting a great push from Spencer Preet. Maybe a little bit worried if I see Preet behind me, knowing he's going to be aggressive on the pushing, but good surge on the outside lane now, as the energy definitely appears to be out there, Andrew, as they work through 3 and 4. Good side-by-side battle here as they work off of 4 and get ready to complete this lap.
Yeah, that top line really got organized quickly, and unfortunately, you did see Mike Montesi abandon that line, but it's working out for him so far. It's really hard to be a Pied Piper here on iRacing, like you mentioned, David, because everybody's aggressive normally. You don't want to sit back, so generally nobody wants to just sit behind somebody, and especially right at the top line. No one ever does that on iRacing, it seems like. But so it makes it really hard to play Pied Piper on these plate tracks, but you can at least control how 1 or 2 of the lines works. It's really difficult to really control the whole race, but you can control it for a handful of laps, maybe kind of control the dynamic and actually that top line, again, getting a big run down the back straightaway. That's a really big thing to watch on these restarts. The bottom line is great through 1 and 2, and maybe even 3 and 4, but once you get to the tri-oval after one full circuit of Daytona, that top line really comes back to bite you.
Boy, I tell you, I am getting nervous with Kyle Vincent Gilbert's connection issues. Being out front, in front of the whole pack, that is a terrible place to have connection issues, and I bet you Spencer Preet is thinking to himself, oh, please, do not just reappear inside of my car, because that's going to be a huge wreck. We have seen that plenty of times. So hopefully that's being communicated to the driver of the 227 that he is having some connection problems, and be really careful with that. But Spencer Preet, just tempting fate, shoving the front end of his car right under the rear bumper, shoving him out to the lead. Now he jumps down to the bottom lane. Very nice, selfish move, as you would say, Rachel, to take over that preferred lane on the bottom, jump in front of the 7.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pull up a bit of a DW here for you, actually, David, and I want to take you guys on a little bit of a history trip. A couple of years ago in the Intimidator round for the World Cup of iRacing at Talladega, I actually managed to use the Pied Piper trick, and it's something that a lot of people in sim racing don't understand more than doesn't work. You are not blocking lanes. That is the critical component to remember, as these guys get a great side-by-side run here down the back straight at Daytona, but it's not about blocking. You at the front of the lane, you pull that lane forwards until they're ahead of the other lane. You then move up. What does that do? It throws a brick wall out there of air. You drop them. They fall back, they lose their momentum. You then pull the next lane up, and then drop them. You pull the next lane, and you are pulling lanes rather than blocking lanes, and that momentum checking is what's keeping them behind you, and it actually works.
Well, I think if there's one driver in this field, and I appreciate that history lesson, that's actually really cool. So I'm happy to be corrected, because I think it's a component of plate racing that should exist on the sim side for sure. But I believe Spencer Preet is the guy. If there's going to be a guy in this field to do it successfully, it's going to be him. And you know, no sooner do I say that than look at who's behind him. It's our pole sitter, Mark Arthur, who was about a half a lap behind on the previous green flag run when he lost the draft. Is now the 227 does pull over with his connection issues. So nice, respectful move to see him there. But there's Mark Arthur in the number 12, the pole sitter, back up front, pushing Spencer Preet around.
Yeah, David, he was real lucky that caution came out. If we had a long green flag run again, you run into issues, but it worked out great for him. I think that was a pretty good move, actually, because had he stayed in the front, he likely could have been the car that got turned by Spencer Preet. So it's a really good move, I think, seeing that it worked out, but it easily could have gone awry. So thankfully it worked out for Mark Arthur. Hopefully the rest of the race goes similarly, and hopefully maybe we're talking to him later on. But right now, this pack is really kind of checked out from 7th on back. 3 cars in each lane, kind of just starting to pull away, and I think something that disrupted the energy up front was the 227 of Kyle Vincent Gilbert pulling away. I think he was possibly asked to by race control. I'm not totally sure on that, but really, it's just single file behind 6th place, so it's really kind of quieted down.
Yeah, it's 6 cars under a blanket here in the first 3 rows, side by side again. As Derek Paulson, I haven't talked about him yet, the number 5 leading the outside lane. He's got help from behind from the lap car of Travis Brown. So obviously, Travis still got plenty of steam under the number 58. Just needs to make up some track position and get a few laps back. And that's also the number 24 of John Johnson. You said I saw him go through that wreck and got some pretty good front end damage, but the pit crew did a nice job of fixing it. So he's still competitive. And there's Brian McCrane, the number 35. That's the 6th car in that grouping there. So 3 by 3 as they work through turn number 3. And then the number 7, Mike Mondesi, behind them, trying to bring that group back forward.
Yeah, they certainly are. They're getting a good momentum here. It's broken up, though, to the 2 packs we're seeing now, a 6 and a 5, with a couple of stragglers running down behind them. Maybe playing a little bit safe towards the back of the field, but they're trying to keep themselves in competitive status for now. Lap 20 in the books, so we're getting some good laps in here. 1 caution so far has been pretty impressive. It's usually a good indicator. If you get quite a few early on, it's going to go wrong, but with only 1 so far, it's looking pretty positive. But at the front, things pretty quiet right now. The outside line just not quite hooked up enough. The 24, John Johnson, really needs to get in the back there of that 58 car to get some real legs in this, but they're just not quite as hooked, and the bottom side just more consistent and smooth. You see them moving around so much on the top. That's what they need to dial out. In
my experience in iRacing, it's the guys that can hold the prettiest wheel, as they like to say, not allow the car to move back and forth and wander around the racetrack. you keep better speed, especially single file here. And I think, to your point, Rachel, the bottom side is doing a little bit better job than the top lane. I see the 58 dancing around there as well. And maybe he's a little bit tentative. He knows he's a lapped car. He doesn't want to wreck the leaders. He wants to get his lap back. So he doesn't really have to press the issue, but you know, you always worry about wrecking a guy, especially in a new series, new season, and here at the plate track. So a good amount of patience being shown by these guys, and you got to respect that. It's putting on a good show. Again, we're on lap 21 here of 90, and I would imagine, I'm not sure exactly what the pit window is for these guys that stayed out under the first yellow, but I would imagine they got to be coming up close on gas soon, maybe within the next 10 laps or so.
Yeah, you get roughly 40 to 45 laps. It depends on if you get cautions. You know, obviously that extends that window. So I don't think we'll see pit stops until about halfway. And that would be the earliest. I think that's actually a pretty good point. If you can make it to halfway here tonight, you're in a pretty good position. And obviously the caution is going to help you. Maybe run a couple laps extra for insurance. But really, I think that's so far out that we can really focus on this pack, because the back five, I guess, that we weren't talking about when it was just a 6-car pack in the front, they have caught this group, and they are making it a race once more. You see the 5-car settling back as the 58 couldn't get to him. Now it's Spencer Preet taking the lead back again solely. Mark Arthur behind him. Oh, and contact. Brian McRae gets up into Paulson. They keep it straight, but that could have been a very scary situation there. Is just a little bit of contact here can send one of these cars flying through the air, and literally flying through the air.
Yeah, we want to see all these guys keep it 4 tires on the asphalt. But, Rachel, I see that 35 wanting to leave the bottom lane, especially on corner exits, something you highlighted earlier. You got to be able to keep that car on the bottom, and some of these corner exits make it real hard to do that. It's real inviting to move up the track, and you get close to that outside lane. So keep an eye on Brian McRae. He's getting dangerously close to that outside lane.
Oh, absolutely. He needs to make sure he keeps his eyes on that one and doesn't get himself into trouble, but right now they're doing okay. So that top side worries me a tiny bit, that they are moving quite an amount, but they're staying as calm as they can. It's just not as smooth as they can.
Calm and smooth sometimes don't always go together when you're in the big pack at Daytona. A lot of nerves on the line. I mean, you know, we're all human beings, and we want to perform well when we sit down to do sim racing. And Andrew, these guys got 24 laps under their belt now, and hopefully the nerves have calmed down a little bit. I know my heart rate's always elevated doing pack racing, just because the smallest mistake can have a huge catastrophe attached to it. So you're always sort of on edge. But, you know, I bet you one guy that isn't sweating right now is that 00 Spencer Preet, looking cool, calm, and collected out front. He's been leading that bottom lane since, well, pretty much since the restart.
And if he is cool, calm, and collected under that helmet, I applaud him, because I certainly would not be. I've seen some contact behind me in the mirror with Paulson and McRae. I've seen these guys wobbling all over the place, a lot of erratic moves since the restart. I would certainly not be calm, cool, and collected at all if I was in the cockpit of any one of these cars in the front. I think if you get back to Montesi, maybe the 86 of Graves, maybe even the 89 of Ritter, that's where I'd be a little bit calmer. But up in the front right now, these guys have really not earned my trust yet that they can hold their own throughout an entire green flag run. We'll see what they can do, but a lot of erratic moves since the restart, and you guys have been touching on it a bit, so I wasn't focusing on it yet, but it's really getting worse and worse.
Well, it's probably a symptom of the tires starting to wear as well, and you know, especially the guys that didn't pit under the first round pit stops under our one and only caution flag. You know, you're on the original tires, 26 laps, even at Daytona, they will wear, and you start to lose that grip. It's a little bit harder to keep the car on the bottom side. You don't have the grip available to do so. You have a lot of steering wheel into it, and you got to chase the car around. Also, you're trying to stay, you know, laser locked onto the rear bumper of the guy in front of you and push him nice and calm. So as the tires wear, the demand on the driver increases, and we see this top lane now, the 58 getting a good surge there with the number 5 of Paulson sort of squirting ahead. So these guys, it's just, I don't know, a cat and mouse game at this point as they sort of race around here.
Yeah, it certainly is, and wow, they're trying to chase a tail right now. It looks like a cat currently going after a dangling toy mouse, because it's making no particular logical sense, like a cat. But 24 drops down. Oh, it's a contact there. 12 and a 5. Just getting to each other there. Paulson and Arthur exchanging paintwork. 2 cars up top. That's where things starts to really suck. You haven't really got the same amount of power, so those boys will be dropping back, especially as the 58 really can't hold a line.
That was a big move up the track for Mark Arthur in the 12. I don't know. It almost had the appearance of it, and Andrew, correct me if you disagree, had the appearance of a message being sent to say, hey, I'm getting sick of running side by side with you. I'm just going to door check you, let you know I'm not happy about it. You're crowding me in the corners. Tires are wearing. Just get out of my way. Let's fall in line and race it out. We got better things to do than sit here side by side.
You know, that's a possibility, but I doubt it, just because of how easy it is then to get yourself collected if you make a wrong move when you're doing that. If you turn him, you're likely going to be in it, so that's a bad idea. Now John Johnson to the outside. He had actually dished the outside lane, then gets a push here from Paulson around the top side, now to the outside of Mark Arthur. Can he get a side draft? Gets a bit of momentum, but not enough. I think, like Rachel was saying, you know, as we go on board with the 5-car of Paulson, you really can't do anything with just 2 cars on the top side. You need at least more than that, at least 3, and that was hanging for a while when the 24 was kind of the caboose on the top side. It was working. He dipped out, and suddenly that top line has not been the same, and now he's up there leading the top line. He's going to find it doesn't work once the caboose abandons.
Yeah, they lost a lot of their energy up top, even with Jeff Johnson out there. 2 cars versus 4 right now. Not going as poorly as I thought it might, so 2 cars able to hold their own pretty decently as they keep that bottom lane. I think that's some of it as well, Rachel, is you keep that bottom lane sort of pinched down and they scrub off more speed because they're putting more input into the steering wheel, so it sort of evens things out. But down the straightaways, they definitely get the momentum just by having more cars in line.
Yeah, certainly, and wow, the momentum is critical, especially for these Xfinity cars. It's kind of what they require to keep them moving. They just haven't got the grunt in them that the trucks of power, so you've really got to keep these things moving at the right speeds.
Sort of a rough in-between in the Xfinity car. Not enough horsepower and a little too heavy on the scales to make it stand alone or shine brightly in one particular area, but still put on a good show here as we just completed lap number 30, so a third of the way through our race here at Daytona. To give you a quick reset, it is Spencer Preet out front in the 00. He's got the number 12 of Mark Arthur pushing him on the bottom lane, the number 35 of Brian McRae there as well. Outside lines made up of the 24. That's John Johnson. Behind him is the number 5 of Derek Paulson. And then that 5th car in the picture there, that 58, that is Travis Brown. He is 2 laps down, but he's been a part of this lead group since the drop of the green flag on the restart. So give him a lot of credit. He's hanging tough.
Yeah, he definitely is, but really it's getting to be a 1-lane race at this point. You see the 24 dropping back, and actually, as I say that, of course, the 58 of Travis Brown dips up to the top side. We'll see if anything happens there, as a few drivers are actually trying to get something going further back on the top. Not quite working just yet, but we'll see if momentum is gained there as 58 dips back in. So things really, I think, becoming a 1-line race around the bottom side right now. But one thing I do want to mention is, as I look ahead in the schedule for this series, we go to Charlotte next, and with the Xfinity car at Charlotte, if it's a day race, it's going to be really hard to drive. If it's a night race, it'll be slightly easier to drive, but still going to be tough on drivers. Then it's Martinsville, Bristol, Atlanta, Pocono, Dover, Watkins Glen. There's really no break until December 6th at New Hampshire, and even that can be chaotic. After that, it's places like Stafford and Indianapolis. So really, this is the place where you want to gain points. If you're somebody who maybe isn't looking forward to some of those races, like Bristol, Martinsville, and so on, you want to gain as many points as you can tonight. So I think this intensity will actually ramp up a ton. We've been talking about this race being rather calm, being that it's the start of the season. You just want to get used to people, but actually, looking forward in the schedule, David, I would not be surprised if we see these guys really push for points.
Well, this is the one and only plate race on the 20-race schedule, so much like in real life racing, the plate tracks are the great equalizer, they say, and give guys that may not necessarily have a chance or as competitive at other types of tracks, the big ovals or the short tracks, maybe don't have the comfort level to compete there. They can come out and steal a win here. This might be their one and only chance all season to grab a win. So there may be some of those guys in this field that feel that way and will turn up the aggression as the race continues on, as this lead pack grows in size. But that's a great point, Andrew, the variety of tracks that are coming up and no break. So tune in every Thursday night right here on LSRTV. You're going to see the SESRA series, the same names and maybe some new ones as people watching want to join the series as they see what a great racing product. Oh, Spencer Preet. Oh, the 12 gets sideways as well. It's a chain reaction on the bottom lane. Oh my gosh.
They all save it. That was incredible driving for the entire field to see what was going on there and react. And they did it just right. That could have been chaotic. You saw the 00 get loose. Hopefully we get a replay on your screen. Double O just got a shot from behind, got him loose, and it could have been terrible. We've seen Kyle Busch make those kind of saves here. It doesn't just happen. You really have to be driving that race car to save that race car in that situation. Then it was Mark Arthur getting sideways. He got a punt from the 35 in the checkup, and it was, man, it could have been big.
Oh, what a magnificent job of driving by these guys to recover. Two drivers sort of individually from the same incident getting sideways on the apron. As you said, Andrew, that's usually a recipe for disaster. But they both bring it back, and now that's sort of broken up the field. We've got 6 cars out front now being led around. What is that? The number 227. That's a lapped car. So 2 lapped cars up front. That was Kyle Vincent Gilbert, who was out front earlier, had connection issues and lost a lap, but now he's fighting to stay on the lead lap at this point. And Rachel, big moment there that sort of breaks up the field and gets them a little more single file.
Well, let's just say, I think some of them are glad they're wearing the brown fire suit. Because those sort of moments at 200 miles an hour happen just so quickly, you're reacting based on instinct. And these guys are clearly great drivers, but yeah, squeaky bum moment for sure. Those things are never relaxing.
Yeah, the pucker factor was wound up to a solid 10 there. Probably going to need a new pair of underwear for the driver, the 00 and the 12 as well. So maybe on their next pit stop, one of their guys can stuff that through the window. But nonetheless, the field sort of reforms here and back to 2 wide all the way back, as one little incident like that, Andrew, can really, I don't know, maybe grab your attention and guys say, gosh, maybe we should chill out just a little bit. Got a pit stop coming up within the next 10 laps or so, I think, and a long way to go still. We're not quite to halfway, so interesting moment. I'm not sure if it was just a bump gone bad on the entry to 3 or what it was, probably that, but I'm still amazed that they all saved it.
Yeah, that was great driving from everybody in this field. Again, cannot stress that enough. But do keep in mind when you're watching this battle for the lead here that the 24 is your leader, that purple and black car on the outside. The 2 white cars on the bottom, they are both lap cars, the 227 of Gilbert and the 58 of Brown. Second place is actually the 5 car on the bottom side. Then it's the 00 on the outside contesting that position. And so, again, just keep in mind that when you're watching this league battle. But really, these guys should probably just settle in, I think, to the pit stop. Of course, you can say that when you're watching this race, but when you have a wheel in your hands, it's a little bit different. Obviously, emotions run differently, and they're going to want to push now if they feel wronged or whatever it may be. So we'll see what these guys do. I think they should calm down until the pit stops and just come get fuel.
Realize you're asking race car drivers to calm down. That's a big ask to make.
Yeah, definitely.
Very rarely do race car drivers want to do such a thing. They want to get
Jimmy
everything. Johnson.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's a 7-time champion, solidly locked into the next round, going for the win because he hasn't won in a long time, and that's what he gets paid to do. Even though it cost him a shot at a championship. So these guys, not quite Jimmy Johnson, but you see a spot, you want to take it, you got to go for it, and that's why they're here to race hard, not ride around, but. Sometimes, patience is the better part of valor, I guess they say, Rachel, or something like that. I think I got that right.
Oh, you got it right, but it's not a phrase any race car driver knows. It's something, well, I lie, it's something that endurance drivers know. Not so much in things like NASCAR or IndyCar, Formula 1. These guys, they're all out for the win, no matter what's happening. But driving at 90% is a talent that you see from very experienced drivers more so than the, should we say, less. They are the ones that will just back it down a little bit when necessary, and you can get what you need from the race. Unfortunately, most drivers go 105 at all times because that's all they know how to do in the zone, and that zone has one setting.
Like an on-off switch, either you're 100% or you're 0. And Andrew, I think it's at a plate track in this style of racing, when you're in the big pack, it's a little, it takes a little more discipline to back it down a notch, if you will, than if you're at an oval and you got a second and a half to the guy in front of you and 0.7 of a second to the guy behind you. You're just sort of running your race and clicking off laps. It's easier to back it down because you're not in the big pack and on top of one another. Here, it's really hard to back it down because you're going to get run over by somebody that's not going to do that.
Yeah, for sure. You look back, and you have to go several years back to see some finishes where we were 4 wide for 2 rows deep coming to the line at places like Talladega, but you still, I mean, when you're holding the wheel and you're going fast, you want to be like those guys on TV, right? So you just want to pound the guy in front of you. You want to go as fast as you can. You want to beat everyone else. If you can, you want to be like Bill Elliott back in the 80s and just completely drive around the field, but you can't. You got to take this one lap at a time, and I think that was a great point that Rachel brought up. Endurance drivers and oval drivers generally have different approaches. I think this is kind of around maybe hour 10 or 12 of a 24-hour Le Mans race. I mean, this is definitely still the midpoint of a race. You just have to set up for the end. Of course, you can't win if you don't make it to the end of the race. So in this case, you cannot win if you do not make it to lap 90 in one piece.
Yeah, can't win if you're not there. That's a very good point. And
to finish first, you must first finish.
Exactly.
Exactly right, Rachel. You said what we were all thinking, and that was the right move to make. Just like the right move to make, I think, for these guys is to get down to the bottom lane. I think as we see them migrate down there, that might be a telltale sign that they're getting ready for green flag pit stops within the next handful of laps as we get closer to the halfway mark. Still up front, side by side, the 24 and the 5, those are your two leaders. Again, the two white cars out front are lapped down. So Derek Paulson in the number 5, John Johnson on the outside in the number 24, involved in the first accident. So I'm really impressed that he's able to keep up and be as competitive as he is. I saw him go straight through a car, so maybe it didn't register for the damaged hitbox, but car looks good, and it's obviously running quick.
Well, quickly, David, they were actually both involved in that. Paulson did get a bit of one of the spinning cars make the 19, so they were both involved, and now they're controlling this race.
Yeah, it can happen just that quickly. Your fortunes can turn around. That's why you never give up. But again, these guys racing hard side by side, and I bet you the 5, Paulson's got to be thinking, man, I got 2 lapped cars in front of me, and Rachel, I'll put it to you. If you got 2 lapped cars in front of you at a super speedway, and you're trying to win this thing, granted, you got 50 laps to go still. What's your mentality? How are you treating these lap cars?
Oh, use them. I mean, if I'm in 24 right now, I've got 7 coming to pit road, and a couple of others, I believe. If I'm 24, I'm happy, because they're blocking that low side. I'm controlling the high side. There's nothing much they can do. So, in fact, if you sit there, be there, go for it, lap cars, get in the way. Because they're not really in his way, but they're in the way of the lane below him. So, that helps control his job for him, and he can ride. They know they're not in the same race. They want to get back on the lead lap. They aren't going to push the issue with him. So, everyone just sits in a nice line. No one passes anybody. And suddenly, you have a race where 24 can let off the gas. He can ride. He can stay alongside those guys. They get waved around. He still leads, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage to have that. It's sort of a pick, a moving pick, if you will. But again, leveraging that to your advantage, as we did have some cars hit pit road, getting their service, and I think those are the guys that didn't pit under the first yellow. Guys like the number 89 of Steve Ritter, the number 86 of Jay Graves. Those guys hit pit road as they work their way back out, albeit a little disorganized. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to hang with this pack. Also, the number 7, as you said, Mike Monacy, as well, as they get back up on over the blend line on the backstretch. And here comes the pack as well. So we'll see where they sort in, but still waiting for the big pack to pit here, those 2 lap cars out front. And as we're on lap number 43, a couple laps away from halfway.
And you mentioned John Johnson having a slight advantage with those 2 lap cars on the bottom, but he really doesn't get to use that advantage if Spencer Preet doesn't commit to that back end and start pushing him. And really the entire front pack is disintegrated at this point. Obviously, at this point, I don't think he's going to get anything going, but for a moment there, it looked like the 00 really was not wanting to commit to a line, was not wanting to commit to pushing that 24. So that's interesting to me because earlier on, of course, the first caution was a 00, Spencer Preet getting into another car. He was being very loyal to that car in front of him, at least while he was in front of him, of course. But he was definitely pushing the heck out of the 9, and it seemed like he wanted to go forward, and right now he's really just sitting back, and that's very interesting to me to watch somebody be so aggressive earlier on, but now just kind of riding around.
Just watching them all move down the backstretch now as we see the 24 jump to the low side. Spencer Preet out there. Second car back on the outside lane, pushing the number 1 of Tyler Pinsino. I haven't talked about Tyler yet tonight. Maybe it's because he's got the challenging last name. But this really is the furthest forward I've seen his vehicle, so he's making his way up. He's got a good pusher behind him in Preet, but now more cars definitely on the bottom lane as that first round of pit stops seems to be done. Again, those were the guys that did not pit under our first and only yellow flag of the evening. So the rest of this pack can probably go another 10 laps or so. And, it's going to be cross flags this time by as we get to that. So while we have cars on the track and before they hit pit road, we'll take this opportunity to take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. So as they run right now, and of course, as soon as I say that, we got cars on pit road, but those are the lapped cars. So we'll take a look at your leaders as they cross by the start-finish line. It's going to be led around by the 00 Spencer Preet. Tyler Pinsino running in second place. Derek Paulson, Brian McRae, John Johnson round out the top 5. It's going to be Mark Arthur, your pole sitter, Sean Wilder, Jason Taylor, Taylor Butcher, Benjamin, and Jay Graves rounding out the top 10. But the top 9 cars are on the lead lap.
And riding in 11th right now, just pitted, is Mike Montesi in the 7. He's in this pack as well. Then it's Steve Ritter in the 89. He actually just nosed ahead of Montesi. Now he's going to fall back behind. Kyle Vincent Gilbert, who you saw pit, he's a lap car. He's now exiting the pit lane. He's 13th. He's a lap down. Jason Anderson also 1 lap down in 14th. He'll get 13th for the moment. Travis Brown in this lead pack did pit. He is 15th, 2 laps down. Then it's Jeff Ward, Corey Stevens, Matt Ridgway, all out of the race. Kevin Dye and Morgan Baird did not start.
That's been a look at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. So here we go. Your lead pack, 9 cars on the lead lap right now. Spencer Preet, the guy we talked about a lot tonight. He's been up front for most of it. Might have created a little bit of an incident with an aggressive bump, but other than that, he's kept the nose clean on that 00, looking good. Brian McRae, we talked to him before the show really even kicked off on the track to hear about the SESRA series. He's leading that outside lane, looking good in that number 35.
Yeah, certainly is doing a great job at the moment as everyone's just filtering around waiting for him to get to those pit stop windows. And, well, the gaps on track are incredibly close, as they always are with Super Speedway Racing. The gap between the lead cars, 0.093 of a second. You know how we know that? We use Dual Real Timing. And the coverage of this series, of course, is brought to you by Dual Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on track in the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing, timing, and scoring analytics. Get yourself a basic download for free, or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com.
Absolutely. Big thanks to those guys. Joel Real Timing. A track like this, it is seconds. Well, it's not even seconds. It's fractions of a second these guys are split up by. So without our friends over at Joel Real Timing, we wouldn't be able to tell you the exact figures. You can eyeball it. We wouldn't be doing our jobs, would we, Andrew, if we couldn't say it is exactly 0.0009 of a second between those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And as these guys continue to race, pit stops really taking place has really messed this field up, actually. And so Spencer Preet pretty much has this thing on lock at this point. The 5, Derek Paulson following him, and it's just single file through the first 5 cars at this point, and they're all spaced out. I do want to mention, I think these guys may just have the winning strategy. They have to run fewer laps, and I think the guys who pitted about lap 42 might be short to the end. It's going to be close if they can make it to the end, but these guys are definitely in great shape. You can definitely make it 40 laps. 40 laps to go right there. I think these guys will be among your winners if we go green to the end.
I think you definitely hit on it there, Andrew. I agree with your assessment. And I think you stay out here as long as you can. You run this thing basically dry so you can spend less time. I don't know if you spend less time, but if you are not having to fill up the tank all the way, I guess I should say, you're spending less time on pit road than the guys that did have to take a full tank of gas. You're getting your tires done as well. So you're less overall time on pit road. It's going to put you out further ahead from these guys as they now get a tow from these cars in front of them. Guys like John Johnson, the 24, and the 2 lap cars as well. So sort of rejoining here as the number 1 peels off the racetrack. He's going to pit all by his lonesome. Not a good move there. That could be bad news for the driver, the number 1, Tyler Pinsino.
What I've seen so far tonight, actually, David, has been that a lot of these guys are really slow on their pit entry for green flag stops. It's not something people practice a lot at super speedways because they expect cautions, but with speed getting on and off pit road, you can get out 3/4 of a lap behind the leaders if you are good with a green flag pit stop at a super speedway, even in the Xfinity cars. So it's some pretty sloppy green flag stops tonight, but we'll have to see what happens when the leaders come in. But it is possible to do that. We talk about how much the field's been broken up. That is intrinsically what happens when we get green stops. The field will be segmented, which if we get to a green stop means chances of us having another one, as here they come now. Chance of us having another green stop is much, much higher. But here they come, and oh, boom!
That's never what you like to see. Brian McRae a little optimistic on the entry. Perhaps he heard you saying the guys were getting on there a little light-footed. He got on there pretty hot and heavy and gets into the back of the 00 of Spencer Preet. Not ideal right there, and I think he lost track of his pit stall, or he just went through it completely. Oh, it's fallen to shambles now for Brian McRae in the 35. He will not take service there. That's going to be a bad deal for him. It's going to hurt his chances, but also hurts the rear bumper. That 00 Spencer Preet took a pretty good shot on entry there as the number 5 is down and away. Preet's down and away as they race off of pit road. It's going to be Spencer Preet winning the battle off of pit road as this green flag cycle is underway for the leaders here, but I'll be interested to see how that damage holds up on the 00.
With the exception of Spencer Preet. Every one of those cars that came in that little gaggle had a sloppy entry right there. Thankfully, not too many made contact. It was just those two, but Brian McRae, all sorts of issues as you guys mentioned. He didn't even turn in by his pit stall, so I think he really was just completely thrown off there, completely thrown off kilter when he got into the back of Preet. That's really going to ruin his race as he now comes in again alone. And this time, hopefully, he nails his pit stop and he can at least save time there, but disaster here for the 35.
Yeah, they say the devil is in the details, especially when it comes to green flag pit stops here at a plate track. Speaking of details, let's talk about our sponsor for tonight, Authentic Details. It's your home for automotive paint correction, window tint, nano coating, and precision clear bra installation in Central Texas. Authentic Details was built by people who love cars, and they treat every car as if it were their own. If you care about your car and often catch yourself looking back at it, as I simply do, because my car is beautiful, when you park it and walk away or even call it by a name, which I also do, I'll admit to that, or even consider it your baby, which I don't do, but I have before. Authentic Details is the right place for you. Go see these people in Central Texas. They're going to get you taken care of and take care of your investment in your beautiful car, whether it's a passenger car or maybe even a race car. Maybe you want a pretty race car. I don't know, Rachel, people want pretty race cars, don't they?
I can't speak for people, but I like pretty race bikes, but that's a whole different matter entirely.
Well, there you go. All right, pretty race bikes. I bet you our friends over at Authentic Details would definitely hook up a nice installation for a clear bra or something like that on a motorcycle as well. So again, big thanks to them, Authentic Details, sponsoring tonight's Authentic Details 225 at Daytona. It's the SESRA Series, the season opener here. We're on lap number 54, and as green flag pit stops have just finished and cycled out, it's John Johnson in the number 24 out front, Spencer Preet in the 00 there in second, Mark Arthur in third, Derek Paulson, the number 5 car, is running fourth. Jay Graves has worked his way up to fifth. So there you have it, and Andrew, now the pit stops are complete. 2 races now happening. The guys that pitted first, can they make it on fuel? And the guys that just pitted, we know they're good on fuel. What's going to be the strategy for them to make sure they're up front when it matters most?
At this point, you just make it to lap 90, and if you're in contention, you go for the win. I mean, really, this shook back out exactly how it was, minus a lane here. It seems like most of the front pack is just all single file. Good deal there. They're going to log some laps here, and it's funny you bring up Details right after we saw the 35 completely botch that pit entry, and he is sponsored by Authentic Details. Do you think maybe really anybody should practice some pit entry, and I think Rachel touched on that beautifully, but hopefully he gets back in this thing. Hopefully we get a yellow, get him back in it, because Brian McRae has had a topsy-turvy night so far. Hasn't quite gone over, but I'm sure we will see a car go over at some point tonight, guys. Never seems to fail us. We'll get a caution, I think, later on in this event. But right now, clean and green, aside from that one yellow, and single file right now. Very interesting to me that no one is going to the top.
I think now, you know, your bed's made, you got to lay in it, and there's nothing to race for at this point. You know, race car drivers that have been paying attention, guys like Spencer Preet, know that some of this field has to pit one more time. They probably can't make it, and if they are going to try and make it, they're not going to be running up front wide open. They're going to have to save a little bit of fuel. So, Rachel, right now is a really good time for patience, and I think what we see on track in the single file product right now is representative of these guys being cognizant of the fact that there's nothing to race for. Just be patient, get the laps down, and maybe when we get to 10 to go, all heck breaks loose.
It's a natural product of the field being more broken up. You don't need to be double file because the field's more spread apart. To be fair, it's quite a decent main pack we've got here. It's just all single file due to ease of racing. It's not about wanting to make place. It's about wanting to get some laps in, calm down, relax before the end, like you mentioned. But they're getting it done, and it's getting done in fine fashion here. These guys are having a great run. We'll say though, the 35 and the 00, we talked about possible damage on those cars. 00 will be fine. Damage to the rear of these cars does literally nothing in the draft. Does not affect you in the slightest, but damage to the front, however, yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, definitely fortunate to get the rear end damage as opposed to the nose damage is Spencer Preet. Now there's a big time move coming from that high side. John Johnson paying real good attention there. Spotter on his game telling him to jump up there and pick up the energy, as that's the number 5 of Paulson. Derek Paulson leading that outside lane, and it all started about a lap ago off of turn number 2. Those 2 cars on the high lane behind Paulson really got a great run, and they were just motoring along. That was the 27 of Jason Anderson. I haven't talked about him yet. And also Sean Wilder, a name we haven't mentioned yet. Those 2 guys hooked up off of 2 last lap by, I should say. Paulson jumped up there, and now John Johnson as well. So we're back to double file. And that's really what you got to do. You got to pay attention, Andrew, to where the energy is as these 2 lap cars continue to pace the field on the button. It's like nothing changed after the pit stops. We're right back to where we were.
Exactly, and if you go back to Dale Jr.'s debut in the booth at Talladega, he always referenced back to his spotter, calling out what line has energy, and that was TJ Majors. He's done a great job of going from sim racing to spotting for Dale Jr., now Joey Logano, and really clearly depicting where the energy is coming from and being a great spotter for these plate races. And Joey Logano was already a great plate racer, but now he's going to be even better with the addition of TJ Majors. That's why Dale Jr. was so good in his more recent years after kind of losing the fire under him, getting all those wins at Talladega, because he had TJ Majors, and TJ Majors was such a great spotter. So John Johnson has a great spotter, I'd imagine, helping him out. That was a great move from him to get the lead back from Spencer Preet. Actually, I think he had it, but get it solely back from the rest of the field and get back in front here, just like he was before the pit stops. A great move there, and actually they're coming up on the lap car of Brian McRae.
And Brian McRae will jump up to the top side. Nice little piece of good mannerisms there as he gets out of the way, not to impede anybody, and racing will resume. Fun fact on TJ Majors, I used to race against him in a truck series here on iRacing a number of years ago, back in like 2011 or so. That was a lot of fun. Good. He's a great spotter, but he's a pretty good talent behind the wheel as well, and I remember losing a whole bunch of races to him. But a spotter, whether they have the in-game spotter here or they bring somebody in to actually spot for them during this race, which is a very common practice. Communicating that message is, what's happening around them, so critical. And so to have somebody be able to feed that information to you and tell you when that run's coming, Rachel, that could be the difference between winning and losing, really.
Oh, it's everything. And I used to do that for one of my friends for 3 or 4 seasons of the NAS, and oh, it's a whole different ballgame. Having a human spotter versus the AI, it's a different ballgame, completely. And it's also more about wreck avoidance. They can tell you what's coming on up the track. It's less of an issue at plate tracks where when it happens, it's going to happen. But even then, they can tell you go high, go low. If they are good, they can predict it coming. Speaking of which, I'm starting to see something coming here on the racetrack. But at the 1.5 miles and less, it's having a human spotter. It's literally the wreck avoidance winner. They will get you out of it if they can. And once you've got experience, like I said, you see it happening, you know where to go.
Absolutely, and as someone who's served as a professional spotting role myself, both at local short track racing and in the NASCAR Truck Series back in 2011, it's a huge responsibility. And I was asked to spot for a driver in the what's now called the Peak Antifreeze Series, but back then it was called something different, and it was nerve-wracking. Really, it was. It was more nerve-wracking for me to spot for that driver in the iRacing Professional Series than it was even almost in real life for a real-life driver and expensive race car. So not an easy task, and the guys that do it, I tip my hat to them, because you are the driver's eyes where he can't see, and that wreck avoidance, as you said, Rachel, really is critical. And so if something does break out here on the track, maybe the guy that has the best spotter is the one that makes it through without damage and claims a checkered flag here tonight.
Quite possibly, but as the energy gets pent up in these 4 rows that are 2x2x2x2, currently up in the front, we have the top 8 just behind a couple of lap cars, and actually mixing it up with a couple of lap cars here. Gilbert and Brown got real slow down the back straightaway, and the top line has got a great run. But Really, this is about go time, and not necessarily go time to get positions, but go time to set yourself up for the end of the race. You've made it this far. It's looking like we'll go green. Can't confirm that just yet, obviously. We still have 26 laps to go that time by, but you want to start setting yourself up. If you're in the back of this lead pack here, like I believe that is no, actually, there's a car back here that I think it's a lap car. Anyways, the 8. Yeah. Benjamin, but if you're one of the guys back in this pack, Montesi, I guess, and Ritter are the last 2 drivers in this pack, 6th and 7th respectively, you want to start setting yourself up. You just want to start getting a feel for things, and obviously you already ran a long green run, so you know how the tires are going to be and what moves you can make at the end of the run, but you just want to start setting yourself up, making sure you're in a position to make a move here at the end, and most of this front of the field is doing a great job of that. I think really the whole top 5 is, but Montesi and Ritter are going to have to really work through a lot of cars here to get anywhere if they want to try and win this race.
It's a high-speed chess match, as they say, when it comes to plate racing. You got to put yourself in the right position to win, and if you're Spencer Preet in that 0-0 third car on the bottom lane, 2 lap cars in front of you, and you're looking at the leaders there on the outside, you're sort of impeded by them. You know you can't get up to the front and take the lead away with these 2 cars in front of you. So as you're inside of 25 laps to go now, if you're Spencer Preet, what do you got to do to sort of break this thing up? You just got to wait for them to pit, or make an aggressive move, maybe try and go 3 wide and hope the 12 goes with you? What do you got to do?
Well, first off, before we do that, I'll say, how much of a nerd are you, David?
On a scale of 1 to 10, when it comes to nerdiness, I'll rate myself pretty high.
Okay, well, you talked about chess. No, it's more like Star Trek's 3D chess. When
Oh
you've got this thing going on, because it starts to get complicated, but nah, 3 wide is never going to be the answer for this. 2 wide will be. It's more about just getting the right run at the right time. You push the guys further forward, you let them duck in, you then keep the momentum going and go past them. And it's just about getting the car in the right place, but use that side draft. These cars are very good at that. Get close to that bottom lane. They've been pretty consistent all night. They're pretty smooth. Get down there, side draft off them. That will shunt you forward so fast.
That was a very nerdy reference, and I appreciate it. As we jump on board the number 12, your pole sitter, I haven't seen or heard much from him in a few laps. That's Mark Arthur. He's had an up and down sort of night. Went from the front to the back on the first lap, lost the draft, got the lap back on that first yellow flag, and now he rides behind Spencer Preet. He's battled for the lead. He's got some damage to the rear end of that number 12 as well, but none the worse for the wear. And a sharp-looking race car with a sponsor that I just became familiar with, Dr. Squatch. What is that, Dr. Oh, gosh, I can't even read it at this point. Dr. Squatch. That's I believe they make soaps, Andrew, so kind of a fun company and a cool paint scheme, the camo on there as well. But it's a good-looking group of cars here, and I look forward to seeing them week after week. But, you know, it's how... I guess the question is this, and I'll get to my point eventually, I promise. We're about 21 laps from the finish of this race. How long do you wait until you make that move to get to the front?
You know, realistically, I think I want to do it towards the last few laps. Obviously, you don't want to open up the opportunity for a driver to come back and do the same thing to you and get by you and right at the end. But you also don't want to do it so late that you can't actually complete the pass before the start-finish line. And I quickly want to mention this lap car that they're passing here, the 89 machine of Ritter. He pitted in conjunction with the 7 of Montesi. 3 wide on contact. Ritter saves it somehow. Arthur was involved there. It was a sandwich of Dr. Squatch, and really he just got squashed. And that 12 car has tons of damage to both sides of the machine. Jason Anderson now dipping down the pit lane. He has damage. He got in the wall as well. But that could have been disastrous. Thankfully it wasn't, but still, big changes to the field.
Yeah, you saw it there live. Just trying to get around a lap car, and they ran out of room, and now a whole bunch of damage to that number 12 of Mark Arthur. That's going to affect his ability to get through this field, as seemingly he's lost a lot of momentum. Trying to get past the 89 now as the top group has sort of squirted away single file. So not only has he got damage on the rear end, Mark Arthur now got just a bunch of damage to the front end as well. That Camaro looking like a sad Camaro.
That's a terrible, terrible joke, but
thank you.
I thought mine was bad. I thought mine
these are
was
sort of
bad.
contacts. Oh, that was too, but not as bad as that one. But either way, this is definitely one of these sort of situations where you're gonna get little derpy little accidents happening, people bumping each other and they shouldn't be. And it's gonna whittle this field down. I think we're gonna see 1s and 2s peel off, but we are gonna see perhaps no big wreck towards the end of this.
Well, right now the flip count is at 0. Believe me, all these drivers want to keep it at 0, but I know Andrew's pushing to get 1 flip at least, as Spencer Preet now has the lead. Paulson jumps to the outside without any help behind him. Can he squeeze back down, or does he even want to? I don't think Paulson wants to be behind those lap cars as he's hanging on the quarter panel of Preet. He could duck down if he wanted to in front of John Johnson. Not taking the opportunity as he's looking behind him to get some help. John Johnson seemingly committed to riding in the tire tracks of the 00 as they come up on another lapped car, so they'll have to sneak past him with hopefully more success than the last time they encountered a lap car, and they do. We're on lap number 72 of 90.
Yeah, thankfully Anderson held outside instead of disrupting the field. Not that that's anything you shouldn't do necessarily. If you're a lap car, obviously you want to save time and get the draft right away, so it's not the worst strategy, but unfortunately that's the effect of doing that, is sometimes it creates, it wasn't quite a wreck, but it was darn close. And more to your flip count there, David, you know, I came here in February and I went to Daytona, and quite honestly I expected a flip there. I have to make up for it somehow, right? So, I mean, don't necessarily wish for any of these guys to go flipping across the track, but it certainly would not surprise me if we see one. Just the way these guys have raced, though, I'm not so sure. I'm honestly surprised that they've saved the incidents they have so far. Now as we come to about 18 laps to go, man, things are really ramping up.
Yeah, as the laps click off, the intensity ramps up, and now Spencer Preet trapped on the inside lane behind those 2 lap cars. This has been such a fun dynamic, Rachel, to watch. The addition of these 2 lap cars to stay out front, it's hilarious. It's almost like we've made a lot of bad jokes, but it's almost like a bad joke in itself. Like, hey, take a group of really fast race cars and then throw 2 lap cars in front of them that are equally as fast and see what happens. It's almost a recipe for something really fun.
Oh, it is. I mean, hey, you lose the draft, you're a slow car. You suddenly are being pushed by the entire pack of fast cars, you're now a fast car. Everyone's equal at Daytona, especially when you've got a big race car behind you. But at the same time, it's a big push now we're seeing from the outside here as these guys start to really organize. This is really the start of our second lane, and I think the momentum will favor them.
You saw it while you were speaking there, a big touch between the 35 McRae and the 00. Spencer Preet off of turn 4. Got the 00 way out of shape. He held onto the car, brought it back up on track, but some close moments there. Again, another lapped car, and Brian McRae having an influence on the events here. He's just as fast as anyone else, but yikes. Got to be real careful there as we're coming up to complete lap 74. It's Derek Paulson in the number 5 in the outside lane. He is scored as the leader. 3 lap cars now inside the top 5 cars. Just it's going to be difficult to keep track of all this as they get close to the finish, but I really think it's the wild card that's going to keep the excitement factor wound all the way up to 10.
That 4 cars, that 89 is left as well, and tailing on to the very end of the very last tendrils of this draft is the 8. He's not quite in it, but if he can get back in it, oh! The 00 actually down to the apron there. He's been having a couple of big moments, and he's going to lose a lot of time. Spencer Preet, I think, may have just caught the apron and got a little bit loose out of the corner. I'm not totally sure. Maybe he's just backing out, but either way, something to take note of there with Spencer Preet totally backing out. Either way, quickly want to go back to Brian McRae in the 35. He definitely needs to be careful, because if he gets into one of these guys and they get upset about it down the road, they may not do anything tonight. Obviously, if you get mad and retaliate, you're likely going to take yourself out. But we have a lot of short tracks coming up, and don't necessarily advocate for sending somebody around, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we won't see it. It's just the nature of short tracks, man.
Accidents happen. That's all I'm going to say about that. Accidents happen. Sometimes at short tracks, they're easier to have happen, and maybe even, I don't know, get influenced in a way that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But Spencer Preet did grab the apron off of turn 2, which absolutely killed his momentum and caused him to drop those positions. He's now sitting in 5th behind this lead pack. I think there's more lap cars than lead lap cars in this front pack, Rachel, if I'm counting this correctly. This is absolutely unheard of, I think. I can't recall the last time I saw something like this.
Welcome to a super speedway where this sort of thing is more than just possible. But they're going to get it done, and right now they're helping these guys keep the speed up, keep the momentum. For me, it's quite a bit more interesting than just a couple of cars on the low side.
Absolutely, this definitely is better to watch from a racing product perspective than the single file, or guys just riding around, not really doing anything. The addition of the lapped cars is just such an. I keep ranting and raving about it, but I really like it. As here comes the number 12, 3 wide on the bottom. That's your pole sitter, Mark Arthur. Had himself a little bit of a moment a few laps ago. That 35 is getting a little squirrely in the middle. Be careful there, boys. It's not going to work. Can't do 3 wide all the way around Daytona like that, can you?
I don't know, but Sean Wilder's
can.
certainly trying to get that big drive on the outside. Am I right? He's pushing his outside, and he definitely made things happen. He has John Johnson helping him out. 3 wide for the lead. It's really just 2 cars battling, though. It's Derek Paulson and Sean Wilder going at it. You have a few lap cars in the mix.
Oh!
Yellow. He turns him. The 24 just barely hooks the 91.
Hang on. Andrew, somehow we had a 3 wide wreck that only took out 2 cars from the top of it.
That's impressive.
That is magical.
As you get the replay on your screen, it takes a lot of talent to only wreck 2 cars when you have them stacked like that.
I don't know how that didn't involve more cars. I mean, it was just like the perfect area. The 91 gets turned around, sort of sandwiches the 24 against the wall. I guess that's just dessert served up there for turning him around. But unfortunate for Sean Wilder. Again, we haven't talked about him a whole lot tonight, and he made his move. He was making his move now to get to the front. A great move on the outside, and just again, like the first caution, a bump gone bad on the exit of turn 2. It just didn't work.
No, just one of those moments where it really does hurt him, but just very lucky, I think, in that sort of circumstance.
Luck is a big part of this whole racing thing, and Sean Wilder really lucky to avoid bigger contact than that. I bet you he'll be able to come to pit road, fix up the number 91 Mopar Ford. That's actually, that made my brain hurt just saying that, a Mopar Ford. But anyway, we'll move past that, and he'll get back in this race. But perhaps now, as we get close to 10 laps to go, under our second yellow now, a chance for these guys, Andrew, to sort of catch their breath and now develop their strategy for the final stage of this race, and the lap cars won't be a factor anymore. So now it's just the lead lap cars duking it out.
You know, David, I said it last night during the eSpeed Contender Series race at Charlotte. I'll say it again tonight. Cue Larry Mack. This changes everything. It gets the lap cars out of this, and actually, I shouldn't say it gets them out of this, because it actually gets them back in this. Might not get the wave round, but I actually noticed last caution we had a couple of admin given wave rounds, so I think we might see the same thing here. We'll have to wait and see if the 35 gets waved around, the 89 as well. Very interesting to me that these guys didn't pit just for the tires, because you might not think it means a whole lot on a super speedway, but it actually helps you make moves if you have those fresh front tires, especially more so than the rears. It just allows you to make more moves and be more agile in that car. So yeah, you want to keep the track position. That's certainly reasonable in that regard. Yeah, you don't think it matters, but realistically, tires do help to be able to make moves, and you have to be able to make moves in a split second if you want to win at a place like Daytona. It might still work out for the 5 and 24, but it certainly helps if you have fresh tires. Also want to mention, the 24 and 91 actually did not have much damage. They might, well, 24 stays out, but the 91 actually might still have a decent car here at the end.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay, and you know, that's part of the strategy. If you know, the tires rule that they have 2 sets of tires tonight, and if you're one of the guys that pitted on the second or on that green flag cycle, I think you got a set of tires still in the pits. So maybe you're counting on maybe there's another caution before the end of this thing, and then you come down and take tires, or maybe you spin out in that wreck and you need to take tires. So you sort of want to leave a set in the pits just in case. You don't necessarily need to come in and get them now. That would sort of be my approach if I was one of the guys in that situation. Rachel, what's your take on the strategy? Would you leave the tires in there, or would you come in and get them now?
It's a tough call. I'd stay out, to be honest, because whilst tires could maybe help, it's really, maybe I'd take lefts at most. At most.
All right, so there you go. Varying strategies, and that's what happens when you ask 3 people their opinion on something when it comes to racing. You're never, very rarely will you get the same answer out of all 3, unless it's, you know, just one of those bona fide things. But, you know, tire strategy and pit strategy, generally most people have a varying opinion on that. So I'm glad to see we keep the stereotype alive there, as the lights are still on top of the pace car. So we're probably setting up for maybe a, I don't know, if they get 1 to go next time by, a 7-lap shootout here, Andrew?
Yeah, it looks that way, maybe 8 laps, something like that. But either way, I think that's just enough time for this race to get really interesting here, guys, because the 24, of course, might be underpowered here. That might hold up the entire top line. Not that we're going to have many lead lap cars battling here. Only 8 currently on the lead lap. Might get 1 or 2 more if we get some admin given wave rounds. But really, this field is cut down from the meager 18 we had that actually started the race. Is actually, there goes Brian McRae. He gets an admin given wave around. So I think the admins are going to try and help this out, kind of foster some energy. But I also saw this earlier on. I don't think it has anything to do with favoritism. Don't even start there. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great length. 7-8 laps. It's the perfect length, isn't it? I mean, you have a couple laps to settle in, have a couple laps to set yourself up.
It's perfect for
and then
carnage.
you have, yeah, well, hopefully we don't have too much of that. But you have, like I was saying, a couple laps to set up, a couple of laps to settle in, a couple of laps to set up, and then a couple of laps to execute. That's the most important. It doesn't matter how you set yourself up. You have to execute whatever moves you can. Again, this race will be massively important for setting up for points and momentum going into a very chaotic, I think, schedule ahead in these next few weeks. Some really tough tracks. Going to take a lot of driver skill to win these next few races.
I like where you're coming from, Andrew, on your assessment of that. The one thing that you're leaving out, unfortunately, is the unknown of another yellow coming out. You can have a couple laps to settle in, a couple laps to set up, but if that caution flies with 5 to go, this race might be over, and you may have just not been able to give yourself an opportunity to even make a move. So with this few laps left, as the lights are out on the pace car, so we will restart with 7 to go, or I guess it'll be 8 to go. Maybe you don't have as much time as you may think, because again, there's no green-white checkers here. So if that caution comes out and the race is over because there's no more laps left, and you were sitting around waiting to make your move instead of making your move, boy, you might have left a win on the table, or at least a shot at the win. So the guys that are really worried about another yellow, I think they're going to go hard on this green flag, try and get to the front, but keep an eye on that 00. I know that's your guy there, Rachel. Spencer Preet, the most aggressive driver in the field. Could be a 3-wide move or something spectacular that'll have everybody talking tomorrow.
Certainly could be, but I'll tell you one thing. There's no strategy inside 10 to go at Daytona. There is no strategy. There is your foot on the floorboard. There is go, go, go to Xfinity and beyond. Yeah, I just worked in the brand sponsor there. You're welcome, Xfinity. It is go time now. No one is slowing down. There is no wait. Do or not, there is no try.
There you go. Yoda said it best, and I guess you'll be waiting for your check to come in from the fine folks at Xfinity for the plug. So well done there. So the field is in the hands of the number 5 of Derek Paulson. Series rules are that the field restarts on the green flag or the light, so the leader does not dictate the start, so there's no jump starts. You go when the green flag is waved. So that's kind of fair for everybody there. So we'll keep an eye on them as the pace car make that hard left-hand turn onto pit road, hopefully for the last time here tonight, as we're setting up for another restart inside of 8 laps to go. Green flag in the air. They're down and away side by side. Spencer Preet trying to get to that back bumper of Paulson to push him through. A little disorganized on that outside lane. Here comes the lap car moving inside 3 wide for third.
That's actually Kyle Vincent Gilbert. He's actually on the lead lap. He's actually fighting for this win here. David in that 24, again, does not have speed. He was involved in that most recent incident. He has no speed at all. In fact, he was involved in both incidents tonight. But that 227 got a great restart thanks to the 24 pulling out of the way. It's a matter of whether or not that 51 can get to his back end and help keep him going. Jason Taylor, haven't said that name at all, I think, aside from the grid. He is now in this top 5 and looking for more, looking for that top 3, if not a win. Here comes Sean Wilder, who was just wrecked as well.
Yeah, no worse for the word, that 91, but the bottom lane winning out right now is that's also the number 1 playing a role there. That's Tyler Pinsino again up to the 2nd spot on that lower lane as Spencer Preet holding serve on the outside lane, jumps up in front of the 227 Kyle Vincent Gilbert. I'm just going to call him KVG going forward. That's shorter. You can see he's trying to work both those lanes, like you said, Rachel, but not able to hold off the bottom lane off of 2. Here comes the 5 of Paulson.
Yeah, Paulson's got something coming here as we come into lap 84. Oh, he's in the middle, Whoa, and they make it a stick.
Grass.
Somehow, 12 is out of the action. 3 wide still, or nearly. It is indeed 35 in the middle. It's getting tight again. Stop it, boys. There's not enough room to huff there. Gonna make something go wrong at this stage. Someone's going in the fence. I can almost guarantee it tonight.
It certainly has that feel to it. The aggression is definitely turned up now. These guys not giving an inch, taking everything. More contact. The 58 working up through the middle, banging off the 51. Inside of the 89 there. And the guys up front are just looking in their mirror saying, my God, can we please just race, not wreck it up? They get it settled down. Too wide now. Paulson on the bottom. Preet up top. It's KVG on the outside lane. I like that. I'm going to stick to that. That works. And the number 1 of Pinsino there on the inside lane. The 35 of McRae got that wave around. He's up in the action. He wants to get a win and come back and talk to us for a second time tonight.
Yeah, Brian McRae made it 4 wide off of turn 3. That's what shed Mark Arthur from this field, our pole sitter, out of it now, at least for the win, unless we get a caution. Coming to 5 laps to go, it would end the race if we get one from here on out. KVG around the outside, leading that line. McRae giving him some help. Pinsino on the bottom side, trying to help caboose that line, but here comes the 51 of Jason Taylor to help. He almost got taken out a lap or so ago. Now it's the 58 making the pass on the 89 for a lap position. The 5 actually backs up. I think something's wrong with Paulson. Either way, he definitely destroys that inside line. There goes the top side. KVG, Brian McRae to the point.
A lot of momentum lost there on the inside lane from the 5. Not sure what happened, if he grabbed the apron or something else. Just like he put the parachute out and is falling back through the field. Really hurt Spencer Preet as well as they go single file on the bottom lane. Really the first car out of line on the top side is Paulson, the number 5, fighting back hard. Somebody's going to make a move to go with him if he can get some momentum going, because you can't just win 4th in line on the bottom. You got to make a move. But again, 4 cars on the bottom, 1 up top, trying to side draft as best he can. The leader back having the connection issues. KVG, oh my gosh, hold on to that connection. You don't want to lose a race like that.
Absolutely not, and he's doing his best to hold it in here now. Things get a little snippy, but they've calmed down a little bit here. Only going to be 3 laps to go, so we're going to cross the line this time by. It is well and truly on now. Anything that happens, it is game over, man. Game over. God, I'm working on these video game references and film references tonight. 35
really
car though, Brian McRae is really pushing hard. He's got a catbird seat at the moment to take this position away. But the 5 overlapping him is going to cost him.
Yeah, can't make a move to the outside with the 5 out there of Paulson. So here we go. 3 laps to go. It is KVG out front. Brian McRae in second, that 35. Paulson in the outside lane running third, getting a good push from the 51. And Spencer Preet in the 00. Just waiting to see what he's going to do, if he's going to jump out of line as well. But you want to protect the bottom at this point. Make them pass you around the long way on the outside lane if they're going to do it. Here comes the run down the backstretch. A good shot in the rear as well. Oh, no, he disappeared. They're into each other. Oh, that's the worst thing you want to see. The inside lane going to dies.
Paulson comes out with the lead. Jason Taylor helping now. He wants to go to the outside. Paulson hasn't committed to the bottom yet, so he's holding that move up. Sean Wilder back in this thing. KVG still holding on the bottom, but not very strongly. Brian McRae behind him. He's losing time. So is...
Oh!
He gets turned. It's over. He's in the air.
Oh, that's awful. The flip count kind of at 1, I guess. But Paulson...
1/2. We'll call it 1/2.
We'll give it the half. How are they going to score that one? I have no idea. Contact coming to the line to take 2 to go. And again, another car getting hooked in the right rear quarter panel as it's shambles for Derek Paulson, the number 5, off of the bumper, the 51 of Jason Taylor. Currently scored as your leader. I don't know if he's going to stay there, though.
Well, you
yeah,
know,
one
that
of those
was
textbook kind of rushed incidents. It happens here at someone like Daytona, Andrew. These guys get so excited, they get a little too close, they start going back and forth, and it just messes things up.
Yeah, hopefully the 51 isn't penalized for that. I don't think he should be. Obviously, the race admins will do whatever they feel is the right move, but honestly, that was completely racing right there. That's Daytona coming down to it, guys, as the white flag comes out under caution. Really, Jason Taylor was just trying to keep his race alive. He was just racing Daytona here in the closing laps. I don't think he did anything wrong, and especially with Kyle Vincent Gilbert having his connection issues on the bottom side, I don't think he wanted to go low, so he held behind the 5 car and just did what he had to do. Unfortunately, a bump in the tri-oval just got that 5 loose, and you saw what happened from there.
Yeah, it was Helicopter Simulator 2018. Unfortunately for the driver, the number 5, Derek Paulson, as he just kept helicoptering around. That's the best term to call it. He didn't even flip. Just flying through the air and cars driving underneath of him. Absolute chaos. But that was racing. That's a racing deal as far as I'm concerned. Coming to 2 to go at Daytona. You take what you can get. I don't think Jason Taylor intended to wreck him. I don't think he wanted to turn him like that. And that's going to bring a very wild and entertaining race to a close here under yellow. So they waited until the very end to have all this chaos sort of break loose, I guess you could say. But in the end, it's going to be unofficially Jason Taylor taking the first checkered flag of the SESRA Series season here at Daytona. In what was absolutely a very entertaining show, the Authentic Details 225. It's going to go to Jason Taylor in that number 51 Phoenix Racing Chevrolet. It's going to be KVG, Kyle Vincent Gilbert crossing line in second. Sean Wilder had that incident earlier, comes home to finish third, so we'll get a chance to talk to the top 3 finishers. Rounding out the other top 10 is going to be Brian McRae in 4th, Spencer Preet, hard-fought 5th place, probably disappointed with that. Tyler Pinsino in 6th, John Johnson 7th, Mark Arthur, their pole sitter, falls to 8th. Derek Paulson will cross the line as the last car on the lead lap there in 9th, and Steve Ritter will round out the top 10.
Coming home 11th is the lapped car of Travis Brown. He was in it for a little while, even though he was a lapped car. Unfortunately, comes home P11. Mike Montesi gets caught on bad pit strategy, comes home 12th, and it's Jay Graves Jr. in the 86. A similar fate there for him. Then it's Jason Anderson and Taylor Butcher Benjamin rounding out your top 15.
16th place tonight is going to be the driver of Jeff Ward with Corey Stevens, Matt Ridgway, Kevin Dye, and Morgan Baird.
That's a look at your full field rundown of your finishers here tonight at Daytona in the SESRA Series season opener. You're going to hear from your top 3 coming up, but stick around. We're going to jump into a commercial break real quick before we hear from your top 3 finishers, so don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss that. Hear from Jason Taylor, Kyle Vincent Gilbert, and Sean Wilder right here on LSRTV. Stick around. Come right back to Daytona.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Just concluded a really fun and exciting 90-lap event here for the SESRA Series season opener. Jason Taylor took down the win, but seemingly so overwhelmed with the win, couldn't even get a word from him. So we won't get a chance to talk to your race winner, but we are going to bring in the guy that looked like he was going to have a shot at the win. And I want to hear his thoughts as he was sort of flying through the air. That's the driver of the number 5, Derek Paulson. Derek, David Shieldhouse up in the LSRTV booth. You got a copy?
I got it.
Well, it was looking pretty good for you there. The car had a lot of steam under the hood and you were in the right position. And it all sort of fell by the wayside there. You keep the 2 to go. Tell us about what happened and what you were thinking.
Well, they got very aggressive there. That coming off of 3 and 4 there, I was getting pushed pretty much the whole way. And I kind of warned them on the radio, just take it easy a little bit. But you know how that goes. It didn't happen. So, I was hoping to get top 5. It was running pretty good. And, it was a little disappointing when you're in first with 2 laps to go and you get ready. But that's plate track racing for you.
Absolutely, I think you put it best. That is plate track racing, and you gave it a great run and you were in the right position. And just some things are out of your hands, but overall, 90 laps here at Daytona, starting off the season. Not quite the finish you were hoping for, maybe even deserved, but what are you taking away from tonight's race as you apply to the rest of the season?
No, overall it was a fantastic race. I seemed to be up front most of the race, and I'm fairly decent at plate tracks, and I just hope I continue to stay up front here in the next few races.
It was certainly a quality run, and you made it exciting. Spent a lot of time on the outside lane there, battling with guys like Spencer Preet and John Johnson, but in the end, you ended up a helicopter going across the start-finish line. The car's racing under you. What's the view like up there when you're doing that?
Yeah, well, when I was flying, there was cars underneath me. It was quite the scene.
Yeah, it was certainly a spectacle here up in the broadcast booth and for the fans at home watching, but you gave it a great run and nothing to hang your head on. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, but before we let you go, we'll hand the mic over, let you give some sponsor shout-outs and say hi to friends and family who help get you here today.
I got a shout-out to Love Motorsports and Jeff Ward, my teammate. He kind of got caught up in the wreck early on. Got to give a shout-out to Billy Tungate at American Tool Supply for letting me put American Tool Supply on my car. And thank you guys for doing a good broadcast, and the guys here at SESRA for putting on the league. Should be a fun season.
There you have it. Driver the number 5, that's Derek Paulson. Ran up front most of the night, brought it home in 9th place, but I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him as the season goes along. And we'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Well, good to hear from him. Glad he's okay. That's why it's just a game, and it's good it's just a game because a ride like that in real life could have gone a lot worse. But look forward to hearing another driver. This man started on the pole. That's Mark Arthur, the number 12. Bring him up here to the booth, and I believe Andrew Cardinale's caught up with him.
Yeah, David, I am. Mark Arthur, you had a great run going. You were in the front all night long, despite actually dipping out of the front of the pack early on, but you came back. You were set up for a great finish. What happened there in the closing laps?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be doing the right thing by dropping back there, and I kind of just lost the pack. And I thought I had made a big mistake, but then that caution came out, luckily, and I don't know, I got back up in there. I was just trying to keep my nose clean, trying to get back to Spencer because we're teammates, and I don't know, I should have known the last 5 laps. It just started getting really aggressive and going 3 wide, and I guess I thought it was Brian, but I guess Gilbert, which they're both my teammates as well, pinched him down on the outside, and he had nowhere else to go. And then I was trying to miss it and trying to get out of the throttle, but you know how super speedway goes with the accordion effect, and I just got ran over, I think, by the 89, pushed me down into the tri-oval. I was along for the backstretch. I was along for the ride at that point.
Yeah, real unfortunate. We saw you guys go 4 wide for a moment, and that might work at Talladega. Not quite the case here at Daytona. It's a much narrower racetrack, but still, you had a great run going. And really, I think Daytona is a big momentum maker. It's a really big chance for you to assert yourself in the top of the field, even if you aren't necessarily maybe up to par on some of the other tracks. Going forward to a place like Charlotte next week, what do you expect for your number 12 team?
I think it would be pretty strong. I ran in the Founder Series here. I think I finished second in the Founder Series. I mean, I'm pretty consistent to run probably top 5, top 10 most of the time, just depending on who shows up. I can't believe more cars didn't show up to this race, but yeah, I guess considering everything to happen, I think I end up finishing 8th. I think the standings are kind of skewed because Spencer got that glitch where you go around a pace car and it black flags you, but I think we'll be all right at Charlotte.
That's good to hear, Mark. Going from the pole to finishing 8th, and you had so much ahead of you. At least you stay on the lead lap. You still get a top 10. And yeah, hopefully we're talking to you next week at Charlotte. But before we let you go, who do you have to thank for this big run tonight?
I just want to thank SESRA for putting this on, my team, Rebellion Racing, and LSR, you guys for putting on the broadcast. Yeah, my day could have been a whole lot worse, so I'm happy with it, I guess.
Sounds good, Mark. Again, thanks for your time, and hopefully we're talking to you next week after Charlotte.
Thank you, Andrew.
And that was Mark Arthur. Started on pole, comes home 8th place, unfortunately, but he had a good run going. I think he's very optimistic going forward to Charlotte. So now it's down to Rachel Whiteford, who is with our second place finisher, Kyle Vincent Gilbert.
I certainly am. Thank you very much, Kyle Vincent Gilbert. Fantastic run tonight. The 227 car was on fire. Not quite there at the end, though. Second place as it stands. Talk us through the end of that race, the final 10 laps.
Well, it played out to be more than just the last 10 laps of the race. I had connection issues at the beginning of the race while I was leading. The weird thing is the only time I was having connection issues really is if I was in the lead, which is made me want to punch a baby. And then I got back on the lead lap and I told my teammates that baby's safe. And I got back up to the lead and it started happening again last few laps of the race, and all of us at Rebellion and our subsidiary team, Red Moon Racing, we were all up there racing real close, trying to help each other out. And Preet got up there and he got to the inside lane, then I got beside him and got pushed up there and got down to the inside, and then Brian was pushing me and started having the connection issues again. Made me a little frustrated there again and lost the lead. And that last caution was pretty fortunate for me because I would have lost a lot more spots if that hadn't happened.
It's certainly a busy one, of course, here at LSRTV. We don't condone punching babies, but regardless, a fantastic run from you tonight. Great points on the table, of course, starting out the season. So congratulations in that regard. Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Jason and all the admins, Jason and Brian, he's one of my teammates, and Matt for putting this on, and then thank my sponsor, Top Flight Computers. Go to topflightpc.com. Use promo code TFRacer1, get 5% off your build. Just thank all my teammates at Rebellion for all of us working good together tonight for the most part.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much for joining us, Kyle Vincent Gilbert. Second place tonight. David?
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Not quite the top 3, one of the top 3, but some of the players that were involved here tonight and some of the guys that really played a big role in the overall events that we saw here. But I mean, Andrew, after a race like this, a season opener, we get 19 more of these. This was a pretty good start. I'm very impressed, and I'm looking forward to seeing these guys continue to race here in the SESRA series. What was your big takeaway from tonight?
Well, first of all, I think this is a very talented group of drivers. Of course, you come to a place like Daytona to open a season, a lot of new names around, a lot of new people, and you expect a bit more of a wreck fest. Tonight, only 3 cautions, and 2 of them were in the final, I think, maybe 13 laps. So really a lot of green flag racing. We saw some green flag pit stops, which isn't necessarily normal, again, for Daytona. So that's awesome that we saw that. Moving forward to a tough racetrack next week at Charlotte. I really don't know what to expect out of these guys. Of course, we'll learn them as we move on, but I'm certainly looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, very exciting start for sure. And Rachel, I'll put it to you. Big takeaway from tonight. What are you looking forward to the next time you see the guys hit the track next Thursday?
Oh, phenomenal racing. Looking forward to seeing exactly how they race, because we can't measure a field by a super speedway. Keep your foot on the floor, turn left. It's not quite the NASCAR we know and love. I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys wheel a mile and a half. That is going to be the real measure of this field and who drives the best.
Absolutely, well put. And now we have to wait a whole week before we get to see the real action, if you want to call the oval tracks, non-plate tracks, the real racing, as some like to. But we will head there next Thursday night, October 11th. It will be Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Carolina 125. You'll be able to see it here live on LSRTV, just like you did here tonight. And, you know, if you want to see more sim racing, just stay tuned here to LSRTV. Coming up next, after tonight, we have a nice weekend off. And then we'll jump back into the action on Monday, October 8th for the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So enjoy the weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Really a great show. Really excited about this series. And we'll look forward to seeing them next week at Charlotte. So want to conclude by saying thanks to my broadcast team here, Andrew Cardinale, Rachel Whiteford, and Brett Wheeler working the controls, doing a great job. For myself, I'm David Schildhaus. We'll see you next Thursday at Charlotte for the SESRA series right here on LSRTV.
The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.